Good morning, everybody. Good day, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this, the next edition of the Nautical Institute's webinars, which is based around today, psychological safety at sea. My name is Samaya. I'm with the NI staff here in London, and I am joined by an esteemed panel of experts today who I will introduce in just a moment. But I just wanted to go over the reason that we're here today, and that is with the IMO's International Day for Women in Maritime in just a couple of days. We're all here today to discuss the experience of women working at sea. We know that the women's experience can be very different to their male counterparts, despite filling the same roles, following the same work patterns, and operating in almost the same working environments. So let's introduce the panel today. As I said, my name is Samaya. I work with the NI here in London, and I'm joined today by Deborah Dade, who is currently Chair of the Women in Maritime Network and Chief Executive Officer of the Seafarers Charity. Deborah, give us a wave. Deborah is a self-declared passionate advocate for the safety and welfare of all seafarers, having commissioned the research that we're going to discuss a little bit later in this webinar. The charities use that research by funding it to create a range of support services for women seafarers, including support groups, trauma counselling, and emotional and pastoral support. Next up, I'd like to introduce you to Karen Stahl. Karen, give us a wave. She has over 20 years of experience in maritime. Her career began on board chemical tankers before moving into port state control and into crew management. She's a self-employed maritime consultant and is a lead in changing behaviour and a member of WISTA Netherlands. Next up, we've got Deborah. We've got two Deborahs today. Deborah, give us a wave. Deborah's joining us from Salute Her UK. Deborah's been working with people with emotional levels for over 16 years. She's been a service delivery manager for a mental health charity, which involves crisis intervention, safeguarding clients, service design and implementation. Deborah has her own practice and currently designs and delivers monthly workshops for the women's military sexual trauma groups, and she provides excellent one-to-one support. Next up, we've got Anne. Anne, give us a wave. Anne's joining us here from Safer Waves. You may have seen her on a couple of our other NI webinars. Anne has over 20 years of experience in the maritime industry and divides her time between seafaring and shoreside consultancy. She is passionate about promoting an inclusive and safe working environment for all seafarers, ensuring support services are accessible and available. And last but not least, apologies that the gentleman, if anything, has gone to the end. I'd like to introduce Chirag Bahri from the International Seafarer Welfare Association, ISWAN. Chirag began his career in 2004, following his graduation as a marine engineer. He has an interesting background at sea after he was held hostage by Somali pirates on a hijacked vessel in 2010. Chirag is passionate and has devoted his life to assisting seafarers and their families who have been in similar or are experiencing traumatic or adverse situations. So just a bit about us today at the Nautical Institute. I am sure many of you who have registered for this webinar already are familiar with the Nautical Institute, but for those who aren't, we'd just like to let you know a little bit about ourselves. We are an international body with members all over the globe. Our aim is to help members with professional development and to promote best practice and safety throughout the maritime industry. We do this, or we try to do this in a number of ways, including representing the interests of our members at the IMO, IALA, etc., delivering courses, webinars, seminars, and that's just to mention a few. The reason we do all of these things is to promote safety and best practice and to hopefully make the industry a better, safer place for everybody. We're going to today be talking about psychological safety, which is a really important and prominent topic. And I'm delighted and honoured to be joined by this panel to discuss this key topic. As ever, this is an interactive webinar, and although your camera phones and your cameras and your microphones may not work, we do encourage you to engage and get in touch with us using the chat function to ask your questions. We'll try to get to as many of the questions as we possibly can. However, as you may know, there might be a lot of questions, and if we don't get to your questions, what we will do is follow up with you post-webinar to either answer your question or to point you in the right direction. As with all things in life, we'd really appreciate your feedback and thoughts on how well we do. At the end of the webinar, you'll see a quick pop-up. This pop-up will just take a couple of minutes to complete. Please complete it, because any feedback is good feedback for us, and it just ensures that our webinars remain relevant and sort of useful for people watching them. You do get a certificate after the webinar, and please, yes, it's for you. It should be delivered to you a couple of hours after the webinar and to your email address. And as with all of our webinars, they are available on our YouTube channel. Please just type in the Nautical Institute onto YouTube and click subscribe. You'll be able to have a look at all of our webinars that are available online, including some of the branch ones. All right, amazing. So we're going to move into the main topics of discussion for this webinar today. And what I would firstly like to do is to just go over or to discuss with the panel here today a little bit about their own experience at sea, and especially, you know, with us having the International Women in Maritime Day coming up just around the corner, we've got a couple of really highly skilled individual ladies who are here with us today. So I'd really just like to firstly start by asking Anne and Karen. You both have a vast experience of your life at sea. You guys are both hugely experienced, both at sea and then coming ashore. You stayed within the maritime industry. I'd just sort of like to get an idea from yourselves about your own experience of being at sea from, I know this might sound a bit rude, but those many, many years ago where you guys first joined a vessel. I want to know, you know, what were your expectations? Who led you there? How did you get there? And, you know, Karen, we'll start with you. How did you get into this career of maritime, and what's made you stay for so long?
Well, first of all, I never wanted to go to sea, so that is, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot at the Dutch Navy, and yeah, the people at the Dutch Navy, I was a little bit too young when I wanted to join, and they actually suggested to go to the Nautical Institute, because that would be a good base in starting with the Dutch Navy after a year. So that's why I actually, yeah, got into this career. So not because I wanted to be a seafarer, but because I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. Yeah, when I joined the Nautical Institute, it was an amazing time. It was a very nice time. So if you're talking about psychological safe environment, those 4 years at the Nautical Institute for me were excellent, were great. So then I kind of rapidly decided that this was my career. So I stopped the whole helicopter thing, and I yeah, fell in love with the maritime industry. Yeah, when I went on board, I kind of expected the same vibe as I experienced at the nautical school with my fellow students, and that was not the case. So my first internship was not the best time ever. It's not about sexual harassment, but it was more not fitting in. I felt really isolated. I was the only woman, but I was also the only cadet. And for me, that made it more difficult because I was not taken seriously. I heard many comments about women do not belong. Women do not belong at sea. I'm not going to put any effort in you because you are only going to stay at sea until you have children, or maybe you will survive for 2 years. So I'm not going to put any effort in you. Yeah, so after a few weeks, I came into Antwerp and I kind of begged my parents to take me off. So please save me. But my father, being an ex-military man, said, okay, no, Karin, you can do this, you can do this. So I stayed. I cannot say that I did not get any support from the master or from the company or from school, because I never asked for any help. Because I felt really isolated and I felt really scared of speaking up, because I was afraid, because I was not really part of the group. I was feeling really afraid of being even less part of the team.
And
so that's why I spoke up.
And I was going to say, and Anne, do you find that your experience mirrors Karin's experience in your first moments on board, or your stepping into the career?
I do. There's a lot that I found myself nodding to there, and it quite often is when I talk to other women as well. A lot of us have similar experiences. Opposite to Karin, I actually always wanted to go to sea, which in a way was good because I never had a plan B. So even my time at Nautical College, unlike Karin, wasn't safe. It wasn't free from interpersonal risk. I had some pretty awful experiences as a cadet. I won't lie, I did have some awful experiences as a cadet, but I did have no plan B. So because it was what I always wanted to do, it's amazing what you can put behind you when you have a goal. And my goal was a successful career at sea. So I always wanted to be a seafarer. I grew up from a very young age saying I want to be a captain. So I just went into survival, to be honest. I did just pure dogged determination and grit a lot of the times. There were some very unpleasant experiences as a cadet. In general, my experiences have pretty much transcended the range from sexual assault on one end down to the everyday misogyny. And it's quite sad that I'm referring to it as everyday misogyny. It's those low-level, pervasive comments. Karin, you mentioned some, and yeah, I've heard them all. Even last year, I was on a project in Northern Europe, and I was told by people on the project that offshore projects fail because women are involved with projects these days. So I'd love to say it was a thing that I only heard when I was a cadet. Unfortunately, it's not. It's the reality for many of us. But that's why we're all here today. And it's been the case. I've sailed as a lone woman on a ship. I've sailed with several women on a ship. I've sailed with female chief officers. It doesn't necessarily make it easier. It can still be isolating. So yeah, it's a lot of experiences, and I think there's a lot of shared common experiences that a lot of us have. It's not always about the severity of what's happened. It can be whether it's those changing room jokes that just cross the line, whether it's that banter that is not funny, whether it's the assumption that you're going to be pregnant, or you don't belong at sea. If I had $1 for every time I'd heard that women don't belong at sea, I wouldn't need to work anymore.
And with you both sort of being here today, we've also got another sort of male seafarer, Chirag, who's joining us, who has some experience on board. Prior to the webinar, obviously, with our discussions, he's alluded to the fact that he has never sailed with a female seafarer or a female mariner. And I just sort of, wanted to ask you two both if you've ever only sailed on an all-female vessel, or whether that is sort of a distant future promise that we have, or that we hold dear, that one day perhaps Chirag will be the minority on board and the tables will turn. But I wanted to understand from your own perspectives, you know, having experience being the only female on board, how do you deal with that isolation, and what's your experience of that moment, or how to overcome that moment? Because you are both still in the industry, and you still go on board, you still persevere in you know, the bubble, even regardless of the adversity. And I was just wondering how you guys have dealt with it in your past, how you have sort of come to the position that you're at today.
I might as well go first.
Yeah.
I'll be honest that a lot of the time on ships I forget I'm the only woman, because I see myself as a seafarer, whatever rank I'm sailing in. It's normally much more visible to everybody else on board and people the vessel interacts with. I've had comments from stevedores and pilots and you know, the whole maritime ecosystem. But I don't see myself as a woman. When I go up that gangway, I am the captain, I am the chief officer, whatever rank I'm joining as. I forget that I'm a woman a lot of the times, normally until some of the issues start presenting. I've never sailed on an all-female ship, even though I know there are some out there. But I was on sea trials in February this year over in Norway, and by chance we had men in the minority on the deck team. So there was a female chief officer, there was a female second officer, one was from Spain, one was from Bulgaria. I was there for the sea trials, and in the remote centre ashore, because it's a remotely supported vessel, there was a remote support navigator who was also a female. So the male captain and the other second mate that were male were in the minority, and that's the first time in my life that I've definitely been on a ship that's had men in the bridge team that were a minority. So it was an interesting experience. We all sort of looked around at each other saying, this is a first for all of us, and it was different.
And just before, sorry, Karen, just before I go over to you, Chirag, how, as a as a seafarer who has, like I said, alluded to the fact that you've never had the pleasure of sailing with a female seafarer, how does Anne's vessel sound? Where, you know, in one of her first experiences after many years, that she is, as the females, they are not the minority.
So first of all, congratulations to everyone on the International Day of Women in Maritime. I think it's a huge opportunity for me, as well as I'm already the minority here in this panel as well. So I'm taking on that as a very positive that I'm been part of this very important subject and to discuss about it. So just to take on that, I think being a minority on board, whether it's a male or female, I think that's very challenging for that person to survive, because the social isolation, the language the other people speak, the food habits, the cultures, the thoughts, everything matters a lot. And especially when it comes to the gender, it is even worse, because the language that you use, the body language, and also the verbal, the words being used by seafarers on board, they have to be ensured that they don't hurt anyone, which unfortunately sometimes we don't, or sometimes we don't recall that the other person is from different culture and nationality, or maybe a gender that we need to keep in mind. So we have seen a lot of issues on board as well, especially when I joined the ship for the first time on as well. We've seen the youngsters, especially over there as well, and I can correlate with all of these issues. The social isolation has been very, very common, not only just for the women seafarers, but also for the men seafarers. And we keep hearing the stories also. My personal experiences, my first ship, I was actually very much isolated, because again, I had no idea whom to approach, how to deal with the situation that we were put in, the kind of task that was given, and expectations that was put on us as a trainee and a cadet. It's hard. It's extremely tough to adapt to the new environment altogether. And I can try and correlate, if a women seafarer is on board alone, without having any colleague, any a women colleague on board, how would they share their feelings, their thoughts with someone else? I used to find sometimes the evening used to go around and try and find someone else, maybe in a different rank, maybe a rating, whom I can try and confide my feelings, my emotions of the day that I've come across because of several the task that, not even the task, but also the the kind of language that was used against me by some of the officers. But then I'm wondering, how could a woman, or maybe if a minority women could actually be confide their feelings, and this is all going to impact their mental health a lot, I feel. And this is also the same, that if a male seafarer is going to be on the minority on board, again, that would be also the case for them as well. So I think that psychological safety is for everyone, for the males and also for the female seafarers on board. And we need to be mindful of what our actions, what our thoughts, and what our words are there, so that we don't hurt anyone at any stage.
Thank you so much. And I think we're all on the panel nodding in agreement in that, a minority status for anybody is a difficult status to uphold, and we should all respect and be kind and mindful to all of the other different cultures and people and human beings that are on board with us. So Karen, before we go into some of the research that's done and how sort of we are looking to become more aware about the issues on board, especially in regards to safety, inclusivity and diversity, I just want to know, as a seafarer who is very skilled and still in the industry, how are we driving the change as the peers of the industry? Because as we all get older, we become the source of knowledge and mentorship for so many people who are entering into the industry. And I just wanted to know, from your perspective, how are we in this day and age driving change towards a more psychological safe environment for our seafarers on board?
Well, can I quickly go back to something that Anne said, because I have a slightly different view on that one. Because when I am in the industry, it's a male-dominated industry, but I always feel like a woman, and kind of proud of it. So I think we also, when we were talking about this before, my goal was always to be one of the guys, and it's all in a language. It's not being one of the guys, it's being one of the team. And actually it's not only about gender, it's about, when you are a minority, it can also be that you have a different background, different culture, different age, hobbies, whatever. If your goal is to be one of the guys, you lose your own identity. And I am a woman, and I am proud of being a woman, and I am a skilled woman, and I know what I'm doing. And it sometimes takes a little bit more time to convince all the guys, but okay, I'm coming there. It takes me less time every time. Yeah. So having said that, psychological safety for me is the basis of this whole thing. So lots of people are talking about diversity and inclusiveness, but I think that psychological safety is the basis of everything. When you have a psychological safe environment, because I really do believe that people are good. Nobody wakes up and say, okay, today I'm going to be evil. Everybody, there's good in everybody. So I believe that we need to focus on the majority of the people who are good, and don't ask victims to stand up all the time, and don't expect that you can change perpetrators, but we need to focus on the good and the positive, and the people who can be our allies. And again, like I said, I believe in the good in people. So if we keep on spreading the good attracts good, just as violence attracts violence, bad behavior attracts bad behavior, and good attracts good as well. So,
and I think as we're all here today and joining today, I think it shows a movement to create more awareness about psychological safety and about being or having a psychological safe environment to work in. And I think that
it's an amazing world, Sumaya. It is, and seafarers are very flexible and very nice people. They are flexible people. They are open-minded. So if you focus on those We will be okay. And if we have some support from the shore side and everything that is available, I'm sure we will get there, because it is a great industry for everybody. Men, women, doesn't matter.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm sure everyone around the panel definitely agrees. I mean, even Anne, who has, you know, experienced some horrible things on board, she's still here today, and we are still all here ensuring and making this environment better. And I think that part of this webinar is for us to also show some of the research that's being done, which I think is fantastic. So I'd like to at this point invite Deborah into the conversation as well, as this is some parts of the research that the Seafarers Charity has indeed funded, which is the port and welfare needs of women seafarers. So Deborah, you, as you know, head of the Seafarers Charity, you guys have decided to fund this research, and we just wanted to know why. What's it all about?
Yeah, what's it all about? Firstly, I'd just like to say that I wanted to go to sea as well, but I think I'm probably a bit older than most people on the panel. But my dad was in the Royal Navy, and my mum was from a village very close to a big fishing community. And I really, really wanted to go to sea. And I actually wanted to join the Royal Navy, to be honest. You know, I saw my dad every day in uniform. I heard these amazing tales of his seafaring career. And I wanted to apply. And my dad said, I don't want you to. It's not, you know, it's not a good, there aren't jobs available. At that time, the Royal Navy was effectively not accepting female seafarers, and that was my kind of dream gone. And so, yeah, here I am in my exciting dream now as Chief Executive of the Seafarers Charity. But back to your question. Well, women make up 1.2% of global seafarers, and industry invests a huge amount into to attracting seafarers into the industry. Obviously, we have often in many areas a global shortage of seafarers, so we want to get more people into the industry. So what has the Maritime Welfare Charity got to do with that? Well, in terms of us wanting to understand, you know, we were looking at, if you've got these 1.2% of women seafarers in the industry, how do we make sure that we retain them? What can we do to make sure that those women are supported at sea? So as a Maritime Welfare Charity, we fund research to inform our grant making and advocacy. And then what we do is we use our voice and our convening power and our willingness to collaborate to bring positive change to seafaring communities. So we wanted to do that, to actually look at getting more women on board ships. I think the industry as a whole is fully aware of the advantages of recruitment of female seafarers, fully aware of the recruitment of diversity. Diversity as a whole is a really positive thing for any industry. It improves productivity, innovation, profitability, you know, team cohesion. There's all sorts of positive things that come out of having a more diverse workshop. So essentially, we wanted to know, what do we need to do to help in this case as a maritime welfare charity. We'd seen the Mission Seafarers 2022 report into some of the issues that women seafarers were facing, and we thought, right, okay, we need to find out a bit more about this. And so, yes, we basically reached out to Seafarers International Research Centre at Cardiff University. They were looking at doing a port-based research into the welfare needs of women seafarers, particularly those on cargo ships, which can be quite, even for men, can be quite an isolated place to work. So we reached out to CERC, and the aim was to provide an understanding of the port-based welfare needs of women seafarers, to understand, once they're at shore, how can we help them as well? Because that's where we as a maritime welfare charity are funding. We fund port-based welfare globally, as well as being the major provider of port-based welfare in the UK. So that research took place, and it was quite interesting that the findings displayed quite early on, unsurprisingly in a way, that the experiences of male and female seafarers are quite different. And psychological safety was one of them. Now, that might not have been that there was anything going on, but it's just the fact that you're the only person there. How do you fit in? It's that new person at school, you know, you stand out more. And so how can we help when, you know, when ships come into port? How are female seafarers supported by the maritime welfare charities? What more could we do? And one of the things that came out of the research, for example, was women would love to see other women, in terms of, you know, very much appreciate the male chaplains, of course, but it's also great to speak to another woman. And there might also be sensitive issues that, you know, they want to speak about. So yeah, it was absolutely fascinating to hear the results of the research, and it gave us a lot of evidence and information that we could effectively work on with maritime welfare charities to decide, right, what can we do as a charity, as a funder, to support maritime welfare charities going forward. So we've done quite a lot about that, and I don't know whether you want me to go into that now, Samaya, but that's why we went into the research.
Yeah, I was going to say, sort of Karen and Anne, from your own perspectives, as you know, you guys have had probably the most time on board in comparison to any of us. Some of the findings that have come out from the report, I just wanted to know how, you know, that this report is from sort of last year, so it's not a historic report, it is quite a recent report, and I just wanted to understand your views on how does it still relate to your experience in general, or has it moved on from your experience? So the findings that they found and sort of some of the recommendations that have come out, are they things that you guys have sort of, you know, this could have been done 20 years ago, and you know, that's when it should have been done, and we should be talking about something else now? Do you still have that relation to the findings from the report? Karen, if I go for you first.
Yeah, I definitely think that if you've done this research 20 years ago, the outcome would have been the exact same. So yeah. Again, okay, I am a lucky girl in shipping. So I was lucky that I had in Southampton and in Singapore nice people from the Seamen's Mission who really helped me, and they took me to shops where you can buy stuff. So and I did not ask for it, but they said, "Do you want me to bring you to?" But I don't. What's the name in English? Where you buy your menstrual care, your sanitary products. So that came from them, and that was really nice. So that is, yeah. For me, that is the biggest quick win, that this product should be available. For me, they should be available on board, because I've been on board also for 6 months. If you go on board for 6 months, then half of your suitcase is filled with that stuff.
Yeah, and I was going to ask Anne, how about yourself? Is it much reflective of Karen's in that sense?
Yeah. So I've got 2 points. First of all, on the menstrual one, just because we're on it at the moment. I can remember a menstrual cup changing my life when they were first invented, because I used to every month break marpole by sneaking out in the middle of the night and throwing things overboard, because it was the only way I could dispose of sanitary products. And there are still very many women on ships still doing that today, and it just seems completely unnecessary for a really quick win. Your garbage, and for any men and women seafarers on this webinar that read your garbage management plans, every ship should have a garbage management plan that says how you dispose of waste. Now, if any of those ships has a woman, that garbage management plan really should define how sanitary waste is disposed of, because it's no secret women have a time of a month and have needs. I very rarely see it. So there are really good quick wins, and it's really nice that this research highlighted those. I know seafarers that were on board in COVID times that were extended by many months, that weren't able to go ashore, weren't able to buy sanitary products, didn't have enough with them because they were only expecting a 3-month trip, not a 9-month trip. You know, we have seafarers today having to make do without products, which is not acceptable. So that was the first point. And the second point, I would just like to have a very belated shout out to the Gulfport Seafarers mission, which I presume is still there over in the States. I was on a container ship at the time, and it was a particularly horrible ship. There was some really nasty bullying and harassment going on. I was the only woman. It was very much aimed at me, but a couple of the men on board as well. So it wasn't just gender related. And the Seamen's Mission took me ashore for lunch I can still picture it. It was this fish restaurant outside of Gulfport. And yeah, any seafarer will know that, you know, just the opportunity to get off the ship, change of environment, different food, already nice. But to have that couple of hours to just outlet of safely as to what was happening on board, and it ended up there were death threats on board. It was all very nasty in the end, but just to be able to offload that safely, I still remember, and this is going back to 2002, so it was a long time ago now, but I will always hold that memory. And it was looking at this research with the recommendations of awareness and support and connecting with others. That's what I needed more than anything else, and I'm not sure I even realized how much I needed it. I was a 17-year-old cadet facing a horrendous mountain ahead of me. I didn't know what I needed, but those Seafarer Mission people took me out for a simple lunch, and it made the next week bearable. And it really does make a difference, that awareness, support, connecting. Back then we didn't have mobile phones that worked overseas, so I wasn't able to contact anybody at home. We didn't have internet on board. We didn't have social media, which was a good and a bad thing. But that connection, it's just so important and Chirag mentioned it with the isolation as well. And it can be for any young cadet, any young rating officer, any old experienced person. I mean, we all still feel isolated sometimes. And that connection, in a way, can be harder now we have more connectivity, ironically, on ships. And I think that highlights the very important port-based welfare needs that we can provide people to still have that safe connection, especially considering the isolation that women do face on ships.
Would you say, if you could, both of you, just for some feedback for Debs to take back to the group, but if you could wave a magic wand to change or to fix one of those recommendations, and I am going to push you for just one and not the entirety, because that wouldn't be fair, but if you could, or if you did have a magic wand, just to A, remove a barrier, or to B, you know, which one of these recommendations do you think is the quickest win to help the most amount of people? I'll go with Anne first.
Oh, I was dreading you going with Anne first. I think it's a difficult one because the menstrual ones are quick wins, but to be honest, we're all women and resilient bunches, and even ashore, you know, we can all get caught short sometime, and you make a plan. For me, it's the connecting with others. I find that so many of us have the same experiences, but we tend not to talk about it because it's still quite unusual for me to even sail with women. Last year I sailed with a female chief mate, and we both went to sea around the sort of same time, end of 90s type time, and I think it was the first time I've ever really had those kind of conversations, because they were off watch. It wasn't sort of in the frame of a support group or anything. It was just, you know, us chatting off watch and doing what seafarers do best, having a good yarn sort of on the bridge wing. And we walked ashore in Germany one night, and we just found this commonality of experiences. And whenever we have events like this, and Karen will speak, I'll speak, we all sort of we've all been through and continue to have similar experiences, and we don't talk about it. So I think that I would have that means for connection, whether that's connection with other seafarers, whether it's connection with the chaplains and pastoral support in port centres, just that ability to connect. And for me, I find it very validating that it's not just me. I spent many years, and still can sometimes, think it must have been me, it must have been my fault. Nobody else has this, because we're all resilient, sort of, and we dig in. So that connection to not feel alone, and I think there's so much strength and power in coming together and webinars like this. So yeah, that would be, sorry, it's a bit longer than a quick one-word answer, but that would be my
That's it. Karen, just invite you to follow on from that.
What can I say now? No, if I would say, okay, yeah, I agree the quick win is the sanitary products, but yeah, like Anne said, women can most probably fix that themselves. But for me, a quick win, because me too, for me, the Seafarers Mission, I'm not a religious person, but the Seafarers Mission, I've been donating a part of my monthly salary for more than 20 years now because of that experience, because I had the same experience. What I would do, I would educate them more of what is already there. So I would educate the Seamen's Missions more about the Seafarer Helpline from ISWAN. I would make them aware of Safer Waves, about the Salute Her project, about the Seafarers Charity, just what is already there, because making new things I don't think is really necessary, but just making the Seafarers Missions and aware of what is already there, and that they can provide it. And I agree with Anne, is that you do not always have to have a difficult conversation, or you do not always have to have a conversation about what happened, about isolation. It can just be a simple lunch. It just can be a simple ride. It just can be some fun at some sightseeing at the port where you are. It can, most of the times, I think that is even more what you need than this whole difficult conversations, because there you have these lovely people like ISWAN, Safer Wave, Salute Her, Seafair, and there are even more. So that's what I would do. I would educate the port facilities, the chaplains, about what is already there. There they can find that support. It's already there and it's solid.
Thank you so much, ladies. I was going to say, if anything, we do have Chirag here, who I'm sure will be taking some of this back to ISWAN. So from that sort of situation, I want to have a look at some of the research that is being done by some of sort of the support network charities, and the support that is available there, and why that support is available, and how year on year, you know, with the best intentions, we are still, you know, people are still reaching out continuously to the helplines. And I'd just like to go over some of the data from Safer Waves and with ISWAN about what you guys have been doing, what you guys have researched, what you guys have seen, why it's built into, you know, some of the campaigns that we're going to discuss later, why we are doing this, why now, why today. So Chirag, over to your good self.
I think if you all know, ISWAN operates 24/7, 365 days a year Seafarer Helpline, which is available to all the seafarers worldwide, irrespective of their nationalities, irrespective of their gender, caste, or anything. And we are been noticing a steep increase in the number of calls around abuse, harassment, bullying cases coming to the helpline, especially the last quarter of 2023, when we saw this steep increase around bullying, harassment, and discrimination violence cases reported at the ISWAN Seafarer Helpline. And if you look at the exact data, all of these concerns a lot on the mental health and well-being of the individuals who have contacted us. And in the Q4, the gender identity of this, where the gender identity was known, it was reported that 24% of the people contacting ISWAN's helplines in relation to concerns about their psychological well-being are actually women. And so we feel, as per our data, that women seafarers are more likely to be affected by abuse, harassment, and bullying cases than the men. We also see that in the yacht helpline, we also operate as yachting helpline, which is unfortunately not an industry where not many yacht crew are aware about their rights, and then they're not aware about what it's a very lucrative industry. It's a very luxurious kind of thing. People don't see what happens to the crew on board because they always see the good side of the thing. Yes, a lot of good stories are also there. A lot of good stories are there from the crew members as well. But at the same time, there are a number of cases that has been reported to the helplines. Majority of them cases are coming from the yacht crew helpline than the normal seafarer helpline. So that means there is something definitely problem at the yacht crew level as well on the yachting industry. And we were also seen that the women, most of the women, if you look at that, of all the cases around abuse, harassment, and bullying which have been reported to the helplines, 14% were women, around 6% were men. So, and almost 40% contacts involve verbal abuse or bullying. And at least in 62% cases, senior crew members were the perpetrators. So this demonstrates again that the senior team on board plays a very crucial role into ensuring that the right atmosphere has been made on board ship, the kind of, the languages, the kind of culture has been maintained on board. So senior leaders and the captains and the shore staff plays an extremely important role in ensuring that the psychological well-being of each and every crew member on board, irrespective of their nationality, irrespective of their gender, is taken care of. And half of these cases which were reported, were involved rape and other forms of sexual abuse. It is extremely a heinous crime, and this kind of scars will remain behind to any person for the entire of their life. I was talking to a women seafarer, and she reported that in her first contract, she was not allowed to touch any spanner. She's an engineer. She's not allowed to do anything. People get afraid to see women on board. People start panic. These are real stories which has come out from the helpline, and people feel like they are the problem makers. On the other side, if we provide them the right support, if we provide them the right mentoring and the guidance, they could be as good an asset as the male seafarers could be. So I think that the male seafarers also on board needs to become an ally for the women on board, and both of them, women and men, both of them should also complement each other on board and have a quality and inclusivity of the feeling of that. Unless and until that comes in, the entire ship is not safe at all. You might want to invest everything on board your ships to enhance your safety standards and everything. But if the people are not happy, if any of your crew members are not happy, the crew is not at all safe. So that's where I just wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you, Magasa. And I just wanted to ask you sort of a question on or around on the research, and it is that, what do you think from ISWAN's perspective, from the helpline and the information that you guys get, the statistics that you guys get from sort of all over the globe? We can see that from this one, the health, the medical, psychological side of things is probably, one of the biggest contributing factors to calls to the helpline for women. How do we bring that number down, or how do we bring that percentage down so that people, what are the aids? What are we? I mean, we're going to get to some of the campaigns a bit later, but from sort of ISWAN's perspective, being the first-hand handlers of this data, is like, what does it sort of highlight for you guys? Are we doing enough in the industry? Are we not doing enough? Where are we at, kind of thing?
I personally also feel like a lot of this data is not being even reported. There's only some percentage of the data that we are actually seeing. We are actually seeing on the helpline that is coming in. Does all men and women across the globe understand what is bullying, what is harassment? What do you mean by those terminologies? And where do you draw a fine line into when your seniors or mentors, it's not necessary that if they scold you or something that becomes a bullying or harassment. They might be doing it for something good for you. So there has to be an awareness that may be lacking still, and that we still need to do a lot of work around making our CPS more better aware about what are these abuse, harassment, bullying issues, and what you can do. How way do you seek support if you face across these issues? How do you seek support and all that? So once you get to know all of that, I'm sure that, and also the sensitization among the senior leaders on board, the senior team members on board, about the role that they can play to enhance the safety culture on board, I think is also very important and crucial to take every crew member along. Once that happens, I'm definitely very sure that the things will be more happier, that the people will be more happier, and once they feel like they have been included, because when we come across the cases, seafarers are always been said, there's always a fine line, and my two fellow colleagues from the ships, the women seafarers, would agree. The biggest punishment on board is to send somebody in the cabins and isolate them for the rest 24 hours or 48 hours. This is the biggest punishment you get on board ship, to isolate them and don't hear them. Especially the youngsters who are coming in, they want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to be participate in the discussions happening. But there are these challenges between the youngsters and the juniors. I'm trying to be gender neutral here. So how do we make sure that we all have the participatory role equally as well in any of the discussions happening and any of the decisions been taken on board? So all this matters a lot into ensuring that an environment is created on board so that we can reduce this number of cases coming on board from the board as well on mental health. And we are also focusing a bit more on social ambassadors on board. We are focusing a bit more on ensuring that the crew comes out and do the come together and in the free time and don't spend more time in their cabins at the end of the day, and maybe interact with each other. That's also a very important part, to know each of your colleagues much better. I hope that every seafarer on board, irrespective of the gender or any nationality, they become the social ambassadors or the mental health ambassadors. They need to be better aware about how they can be, first of all, look after their own mental health well-being, and then how they can also be an ally to their fellow colleagues.
Yeah, and with some of the other research that we're just going to present today, I think sort of echoes the findings from ISWAN. So I'd like to invite Anne just to go over a couple of, or just to sort of round up the data that Safer Waves are gathering, as well as I think it's a little bit different, but in the same way, I think it highlights the same kind of responses or the same issues in that spectrum. So over to you, Anne.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of power in data and understanding what the problem is. But I do very much agree with Chirag that this is very much the tip. And Karen and I have both said how we reported nothing. Very grateful. I did try and report one and never again. When I was a cadet, certainly. And so it is very much, I mean, I've said it a few times that seafarers are very resilient, and it can be difficult for us to even want to get help. And I hold my hand up here and saying I was, probably still am, one of those people that would be very reticent to call a helpline. So it's only by surveys such as the one that Safer Waves did. So we did this one in 2020, and we currently have a survey ongoing for UK-based seafarers and seafarers in UK ports. So foreign seafarers in UK ports with the UK Police and University of Winchester. And there's power in what data shows. So this data in 2020, it was unusual because it was a majority female respondent base, which obviously, as we were saying, females are a small percentage of seafarers. So there's that slant to the sample anyway. However, we can see some pretty shocking numbers here in different abuse that people have confidentially reported in the survey. And what I find interesting, very much aligns with what Chirag and the ISWAN data supports, is the impact on mental health. And we can see on this with the respondents a very, very high percentage of significant and severe impact. And we know that mental health, it can come and it can go, and things can affect you many years on. So this is obviously just a snapshot, but we're talking real people here. We see mental health, we see career at sea. Deborah was talking about the retention issues. We want a diverse workforce, and we want to keep a diverse workforce. And behind the retention issues, behind difficulties to get a seafarer medical or sick leave, are real people that have been through some pretty horrible experiences they really shouldn't have to go through. So it's how we support seafarers going through those experiences, whether if it's very real now, whether it was historic. It's all about supporting the individual. And when we asked our respondents what sort of support they would want, again, we were just talking there about the difference of port welfare and the different availabilities. I always like to think that it's like a menu, that we're all individual, we're all different people. A helpline will work for one person, a face-to-face will work for somebody else. But there's this big body of respondents that said they wanted, I come back to the point about awareness and coaching and contact time. They want mentoring, they want chat support, email support, this is one of the reasons we set up our email support service with Safer Waves, was based on this data to try and meet that need. But it's having different options to help seafarers realise that not only are they not alone, but there's no barriers to reaching out. And we're here, and I think all the other charities here today would share the same message, that we're all here when you want to, if you want to, and it's very much your choice and in the method that works for you.
And I think that's what I was sort of going to lead on to, because we have sort of had some sort of filtering questions coming through, and we are talking about psychological safety and the ability to feel safe at work, and for you to feel or be able to speak out, to know where to go to get some support. And I'd sort of like to have a look at and invite Deborah from Salute Her just to give us a bit more of an idea, because there are times inevitably where adversity reigns and things do go wrong, and it's important that we highlight that you are not alone in any situation of that, and there is always support out there to create, to build, to put you back together, to make you this not the same person you were before that, but to build you back up into a human being where you can survive and you can go and be happy. And I think it's really important to note that there are support avenues out there for people who have faced adversity, and there are support mechanisms to help you make your environment a more psychologically safe environment. So over to you, Deborah. Sorry if I just sort of stole a bit of your thunder in that sense, just there. But over to you for you to give us a bit more around sort of what support services are actually there and actually available, before we sort of go into Anne and what people can do, or some practical tips for you guys to do on board today. But yourself, please, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So Salute Her UK was set up in 2018 by the lovely Paula Edwards, who's the CEO of Salute Her UK. I'm a therapist and a course facilitator for them. And Salute Her UK, what's really important about it, and one of the things I love about it, is the holistic approach that it has. And it looks at people as individuals and them as a person. It tailors that approach to that person. So it has a tiered approach. And if you look at the PowerPoint that's up there, you can see that it has that tiered approach. So like if you get referred to Salute Her UK, you would speak to somebody who would really be listening to what you're asking for, what your needs are, what support you need. And within that, it's sort of like got a, well, it's not sort of, it has got a trauma-informed approach. And what that means is that we're really listening to that person and what that person needs. We're tailoring it to them. So what are they asking for? Like some of the panels have talked, that people have talked about, you know, like listening to what support people need, what's good for people. Some like online support, some like face-to-face, some like want to do like group work, and we're all so different and unique in what's going to help us, and that's what's really important. So Salute Her UK, you would come along, you would speak to somebody, they would really listen to you. And there's lots of ways that that tiered approach works, because not everybody wants therapy. Not everybody wants to join a support group. Not everybody wants to do an exercise class, right? So it's really listening to what that person wants and tailoring it to them, so they're involved in that care process. And within that, what we're working towards is post-traumatic growth. And, you know, years ago, I didn't really understand what post-traumatic growth is. For me personally, I was suicidal 20 years ago, and I can really connect to post-traumatic growth because I can now look back on the experiences that I had and how that's got me to where I am now, like the strengths, the lessons, what I've learned about myself, the awareness, the courses I've been on, yeah, everything that's got me to where I am now. The post-traumatic growth is really important, and that's where we're aiming at with Salute Her UK. So you can see on there, it's got lots of like activities, and it's got complex treatment. Again, complex treatment, Salute Her UK do EMDR, they do DBT, they do CBT. I'm sounding like a military person now with not lots of CBT and EMDR stuff, but they're all specialists in their field, and Salute Her UK is specialist in sexual violence and sexual assault. And ultimately, what we're trying to do for seafarers is for them to have a voice, to feel safe, to feel listened to create that space, in order for them to work with them, for them to be working towards that post-traumatic growth. So I know, like Anne was talking about her experience 20 odd years ago, I think you said, Anne, didn't you? But it's looking at, this is where I was, this is where I am now, and this is where I'm heading. And Salute Her UK are involved in a lot of research as well, and publishing research in this arena, to find out exactly what is it that women are asking for, what they need, and how can we put best practices and policies and a support package in place. We did a training course which Shirag was on in November last year for ISWAN on advanced sexual violence training. And going back to, again, what the panelists have said, it's really important to get that awareness out to people, that not only the people that are working there and the managers, but to everybody. So everybody knows what is there to support them, because like we've already alluded to, there is support there. So that's all I've got to say. We're here, I'm here, and I want to help and support you. So please get in contact.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Debs. That's amazing. And I think with Anne, with some of the work that you guys do with Safer Waves, now we are going to just put up a slide with a couple of quotes from some of the ladies or some of the individuals that Safer Waves have been working with. And I think the slide in itself shows the barriers to gaining support in the first place, but it also then, I believe, will hopefully or nicely show how some of the work that we're doing does make a change. And if there's anything that you sort of want to comment while the quotes are going up, please feel free from a Safer Waves perspective, because like I said, I think it's, you know, it's really, really important that these women are heard, that it's not, you're not hiding behind anything. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, and I just want to also reiterate that this webinar today is about women's experiences at sea, but like all the charities here today, we're here for men and women, and these types of events happen to men as well as women. So male, female, non-binary, however you identify, we're there for you regardless. And I think that's a really important point, because some of these quotes are quotes that men on this webinar might read and think, oh, I've had similar, and it can be about some unacceptable trauma that has been inflicted on you. I mean, that I didn't tell the captain because I thought it was my fault. Could be any shame-based experience, which again is this power of speaking out. I very much identify with this one that says about if my experiences can help one other person, and it's certainly something I know in the vast majority of my career up to date, probably to a few years ago, I was in survival mode for myself. I'll be very honest. I was being probably very selfish and just trying to get through. It's probably being a bit harsh. I had a small network of people that I was encouraging, but I was just trying to. I didn't speak up. To be honest, I didn't even fully understand the depth of my own experiences and what I went through, because it was very much put them in a box, carry on, keep carrying on. And I think there's probably many of us that can get to that point where we look back and we think, and society moving on has certainly helped me as well with things like the Me Too movement, where you look back and you think, oh wow, those experiences that I took to be my normal were wrong. And I think it's this having, you were saying about sort of what you can do, and I am still very much working on comments of how do I call out unacceptable behaviour. I've been on the receiving end of a lot of unacceptable behaviour, but I still find it very difficult to, in a socially acceptable way, if you like, call out inappropriate behaviour when I see it on board. And if I struggle with that, knowing what it's like to be on the receiving end, for men and women on this call that haven't been on the receiving end of unacceptable behaviour, I can imagine it'd be 10 times more difficult. So I think there's this really big piece on education, and I think part of the education comes from understanding the lived experiences of men, and especially women, to say, right, this is how it feels, this is why it's unacceptable. And we all come from different cultures, different backgrounds, we've all had different experiences growing up, in our formative years, on ships working, and to have that baseline of a locker room joke is not banter. It's, there's something called a sort of a pyramid, and the serious sexual assaults are right at the top. However, that it comes from the base of this lower level stuff that I know most of my career I have not called out, and I have just laughed off, even when it's been directed at me. And that's something that I know I'm working on, and I would invite anybody here at this webinar to take away one thing that they are going to do to help make women's lives at sea better. And it could even be your own life as a woman at sea better. And certainly that's my personal journey, that I need to keep learning how to stand up, how to be an ally, how to be an active bystander, how to stand up and call things out, and to identify unacceptable behaviour, because when it becomes your normal, it's very difficult to even realise that those locker room jokes are wrong.
And I was going to say, we are quickly running out of time today, as we always do in the webinars, and I do want to get to people's questions. And I'll just give you sort of 30 seconds to go over handling a disclosure. I mean, it's nowhere near enough time, but I do just want to give a shout out to Deborah and to Chirag for the ISWAN campaigns as well, of how people can get in touch. So please go ahead, Anne.
Yeah, it's a quick one, this one, because it's very self-explanatory, really. It's what you see on the screen. So feel free to screenshot it, people, take a photo on your phone, reach out to us at Safer Waves if you want more information. Our email address will be at the end of the slides and on a handout, I believe. Feel free to reach out for more information on this. But essentially, we're all different. Deb's mentioned it, we're all individuals. There's different things that talk to different people, but essentially we find that this model works. We all like a bit of reassurance, we all like acknowledgement and validation, we all can do with empowerment and recognizing strengths and signposting to find that appropriate mechanism. And it doesn't have to be really serious, in-depth conversations. A lot of this can be very casual, whilst you're on the mooring station or wherever you may be.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anne. And I will just quickly hand over to Chirag and to Anne, as these are a couple of campaigns that ISWAN and the Seafarers Charity, along with the UK P&I Club, are funding. So guys, firstly, how do we get in touch, or how do we sign up to any of these campaigns? Where can we find more information? Just give us a 30-seconder. I'm really sorry, but I want to squeeze in people's questions.
Can I just say just quickly that the Seafarers Charity, as a result of the research, had the idea to come up with this campaign for allyship, and we partnered with the UK P&I Club because we want to make sure that people have a great career at sea. And this is going to be launched in June, and we work very closely. We're main funders, one of the 3 main funders of ISWAN. They do fantastic work, and as Chirag said, they're available 24/7, 365 days a year, multiple languages, so anyone can access these. So Chirag, over to you to talk a little bit more about the allyship campaign, which we're very excited about, and just we really want to help the retention of female seafarers.
Yeah. No, first of all, thank you to the funders for supporting this campaign. I think without their support, this would not have been possible. And the campaign actually plans to raise awareness among the men and women seafarers of the role they play in improving the safety of all seafarers on board vessels through the use of inclusive language and an approach which does not stigmatize male seafarers, but also does not paint women seafarers are victims or lesser than their male colleagues. So it will be actually focusing on bringing together both male and as well as female seafarers on the importance and on improving their relationships on board, as well as to ensure that the male seafarers get influenced without creating any division between the men and women on board. We would also like to look at in this campaign that how the captains and the senior officials or the senior staff on board are leading by example as a result of this campaign. We hope that we are able to explain and demonstrate the male allyships and the importance of the allyship between the crew members on board ship. We need to also look into this campaign. We will be looking at is to amplify the lived experiences and the stories to help the case for a long-term change. The campaign is a small piece of work, but then we need to make sure that this can be the starting point to bring in a lot of more changes that can happen. And we would also like to raise the awareness of the support or the resources been available for the seafarers, especially the women seafarers who can then access those resources. So these are some of the objectives that we are planning to include in this awareness campaign. And just lastly, that we have been very much progressing ahead. As Deborah mentioned, we are looking at to launch it in June, July, and we are already having 4 focus group meetings, training group meetings have already been formed, and a lot of discussions are going on to finalize the content of the. And so, most of the people over here in the panel have been part of that, and they've given excellent feedback into it. We're very excited to make this as a positive messaging across. So that more and more seafarers can come and take part into it. So again, we would like it to be a bit of welcoming and belonging, and obviously equality and inclusivity is the main focus of this campaign. So thank you. Right. We are more than happy to receive any more feedbacks from any one of the attendees listening to this. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much to everybody. So we're just going to have a quick fire Q&A. Just because there are a couple of questions that I will try and get through just for the next couple of minutes. So I would like to ask the panel, we have one here, which I think is an excellent question. Anne said a key phrase, I believe, I never considered myself as female while on board. Should, in the panel's opinion, and I would like a yes or no answer from you all, please. No explanations or variations. This is going to be very difficult. Should, in the panel's opinion, females in our industry be prepared to be encountered as just a seafarer and not as a woman or a man? So, should, in the panel's opinion, females in our industry be prepared to be encountered as just a seafarer? Chirag, I'll go with your good self first. Just a simple yes or no. I know it's the terrible question.
Yes, absolutely. I think we have to be all equal.
Anything, Deborah?
Yes.
Yes, Debs?
Yep.
Anne?
Yep.
And Karen? I was going to say
I'm
she's
sorry,
going
no.
to say no. Okay, perfectly fine. Thank you. We will follow up if there is a follow up to these. We will, of course, be in touch with the person who has asked the question. So we've got another one which I think is quite interesting, and it is, as a manning agent, how can a manning agent contribute to psychological safety, especially for females on board? Karen, I see you're already nodding, so I'll give you approximately 2 or 30 seconds to 40 seconds to give us an answer.
Kind of hoping that this would come up, because we have loads and loads of good presentations, but on the preventive side, I would encourage manning agents and shipping companies to do something before they need to call Anne or need to call Deborah. So it's in my opinion, it is the responsibility of a shipping owner to create a safe environment, and they should be able to provide whatever is needed. And again, also, if things go wrong, that there are loads and loads of charities, but they are the ones who are responsible for making a psychological safe environment, and they should hire people, not only because they are good in maneuvering a ship, but they should hire people who are people persons.
Thank you so much. And I think this one, I'd actually like to point this question at Deborah, because I think the Seafarers Charity possibly is possibly an avenue for you guys. But we have a person on the webinar who is saying that they are a seafarer on historic and traditional sailing ships. Many of the tall ships that we find around the world nowadays are privately owned or owned by charities, small teams, with volunteers running the actual vessel. There is no signposting within that side of the industry for psychological safety on board. Would there be an avenue for the Seafarers Charity to extend into that area for those, for those specifics of the industry, rather than, there is the general cargo, bulk, tankers, all of that kind of stuff. But is there an avenue for perhaps the seafarers? Would it be something that you guys might extend to in the future?
So the short answer is yes. We support anyone who works at sea. And we support through, the amazing charities that we fund or different organisations that we work with. And I think always the most important thing is signposting. There is so much help out there, and there is so much good practice, not just from charities, but from the other organisations too. So, if we could get people to, I don't know, perhaps we could get people to reach out to the Nautical Institute. You've got 400 odd people online, plus today, I understand. So, perhaps we can share all of the different places. Perhaps there needs to be a central repository. We've got loads of information on our website, so have ISWAN, etc. So there is a lot of help out there, and we need to get better about sharing it at the time when people are being onboarded, trained cadets, as well as during their career at regular reminding, times.
Thank you so much. And I think we're going to wrap it up pretty shortly, as we've been going on for quite a while now. But I just wanted to ask Karen and Anne, because I think this falls back to the research sort of we discussed at the start, and that is, with the aging population of female seafarers, isn't it also about time that we address the menopause and what that looks like on board for women, and how that affects the dynamics of what's going on board, and sort of, a lot of the things are about, younger female seafarers, menstrual cycles and all of that. But we're just wondering, as we move to retention and to look to retain, you know, yourselves, the highly skilled seafarers that you are? How can we help with those associated issues of the menopause, and what might support like from that end look like? Anything from you both?
Yeah, I'm happy to chip in there. That obviously we were talking about the availability of sanitary products. It's also the availability of hormone replacement therapy, patches, and medication in general. And I think aging in general is something that maritime doesn't deal with particularly well. We have a very diverse maritime pool. You know, we will have people on ships from 16 to in their 70s, or even older. And aging is something, and the age-related issues that come with it, regardless of gender, is something that I think can be dealt with better in maritime. But certainly when it comes to, as you say, we have a generation now of female seafarers who are going through the menopause, and it's almost the next taboo, I think, to start discussing, that doesn't get enough airtime. And as you've allowed me to chip in on this, I really just want to quickly say, I wanted to at the end of the last piece, if you're on a tall ship, if you're a fisher, if you're in the leisure side of the industry, we still see you. This isn't women on cargo ships. This isn't women on cruise ships. We've had service users at Safer Waves from the tall ships sector, so we know there are issues regardless of what sector you're on. So if you are a woman on a ship that is experiencing something, that wants to reach out, we see you. And that's just a really important message I wanted to get across. Regardless, it's not a sector problem. It's an industry and a societal problem. Let's face it, it is a societal problem as well. So we see you.
So, Anne, can I just ask, from just off the back of that, and I think because it will round up sort of this entire moment for us, and I think it links to another one of the questions that we've had. But if somebody is in a situation or an environment where things are not psychologically safe for them, how do they raise that issue? How do they, gain true psychological safety, and not fear the reprieve of anything? But how can they sort of but how can they bring it to light in a positive way so that the adversity is removed from that situation? In your opinion, how would we do that?
I think everybody's situation is unique. Everybody's circumstances are unique. It very much depends what's going on, who the perpetrator or perpetrators are. I mean, one of the definitions of psychological safety from Amy Edmondson that I really like is that psychological safety is a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. Now, if you feel that your team on board is not safe because of comments, because of physical actions, whatever it may be, you have interpersonal risk, and how you address that is very unique for your situation. So it's something I was really hoping would quickly come up, because companies are starting to have policies and procedures, which is great, and some flag states are, but they may say that you have to report to the master, you have to report to the HR manager, your manning agent, or the DPA. There is no right way. And if there's a woman or a man that's on this webinar that wants to report, do not feel that you have to prescribe to something prescribed. I mean, people that know me know I'm a big proponent of ISM. However, every situation is unique, and your safety comes first. And if there is a natural reporting point that can keep you safe, for example, a cadet, I know of lots of cadets that have had issues that have been successfully resolved by going to their cadet training company, and that cadet training company has been able to come up with a reason why they will move the cadet to another ship if that is what the cadet wants, without it being brought up as an issue. So having that empowerment that person is in control, I really cannot highlight enough. So report how you see fit, and again, that is where you can talk to ISWAN, you can talk to Safer Waves. We have service users that have contacted us to say, this is happening, how do you feel it would be the most appropriate way for me to report or respond? It might be that you don't want to report and you just want support, or you want advice where is the best mechanism in your situation. So sorry, it's not a really nice soundbitey answer, but you as the individual come first. Every situation is unique. I think of the experiences I had, they were very much all unique, and there was no right way or no singular way to deal with any of those.
And I think that is probably the most perfect way to actually end this webinar today. I have put some information on the screen for people to get in touch with you guys, for you guys to go to these different websites, for you to be able to find the support you need. The Nautical Institute, as a member organisation, as a representative, we are always here for every seafarer in the entire world, and I think that sort of goes across the board for all of the charities and the organisations that we've got here today, is that we are here for you. You are not alone, so please get in touch with us. We are always here to help. We are always here to listen, moreover than not. So thank you all very much for joining us today. If you do want to get in touch with the Nautical Institute at any time, you can get in touch with your local NI branch or head over to our events listing page for all the upcoming events. But thank you to the panel. It has been a wonderful experience with you all. We wish you all a wonderful rest of your day, evening, afternoon, whatever that might be. Thank you, everybody. Cheers, thanks.